Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counter Clipping Show number 241 for October 6th, 2025, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. Our topic is Major League Wargaming topics. What are the big ones? Which ones aren't the big ones? And we'll talk about a number of different angles to that. So we are drinking because I am in a celebratory mood. We'll get to why shortly. The Laphroaig 10-year. It is fabulous. It is bottled at 43%. It is one of my favorites. If you do not like heavily peated whiskey, you will not like this. It is very, very smoky. I gave a dram of this to a buddy of mine who's a big Macallan guy and doesn't really drink much else. And I believe the top of his head came off very briefly during the encounter. It was fantastic. Thank you, David Imperato. I am also extremely pleased with last night's chit show. We talked to Jeremy White and Ed Ostermeyer about the upcoming game Infernal Machines, which looks really cool. And if you don't know, check that video out. It turns out it's not branded this way, but it's pretty much the next Enemy Coast Ahead game. It is constructed in a way very reminiscent of the Enemy Coast Ahead games, which I think is good. There's nothing wrong with Glenfiddich at all. It is excellent whiskey. Although I do prefer the 15. Charles Latour's grandson has excellent taste in music, as usual. So we got a lot to cover tonight. In addition to the topic, there is a bit of news. The announcement is really a personal announcement more than anything else. But we have a whole bunch of business to take care of in the meantime. So before we get started, let me remind everybody... Oh, and we are clipping Advanced Squad Leader. We're back to the French vehicles. So... you could be able to smell the peat in this from a distance. I debated this or the Lagavulin, but I'm a huge fan of Laphroaig. I actually filled out the little card to get 1 square foot of land donated to me on the Laphroaig facility up in Scotland. So, and it is good fall whiskey. That is true. The fifth, well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure what I had. All right, so. Let me remind everybody to please do like the video if you have not done so already. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Super chats and super stickers are on. They are a great way to get your comment highlighted. And let me flag this for later. To get your comment highlighted, and it helps to support the channel. And in terms of supporting the channel, there's a bunch of links to do that in the video description. And a big shout out to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsor of the Counter Clipping Show, from whom we will be hearing in a bit. And to the patrons of Ardwulf there. We have a ton of Patreon news, and I actually updated everything, so let me put the ticker up. And I have a shout out to do for Jonathan Austin, who's joined us at the veteran level. Thank you, Jonathan. We have Philippe Bichet, George Driver, and Okano Michiaki joining us at the warrior level. We have Sean Sullivan stepping up as hero, and Garrison Venn moving from swordsman to hero, and Patrick Riley moving from warrior to swordsman. So thank you, Jonathan, Philippe, George, Dark Avenger, who's joined us at the swordsman level, Sean, Garrison, and Patrick Riley, and Okano Michiaki, which I had to spell phonetically on my notes. So, and I still probably got it wrong. The ticker is now running. Should be running now. Anyway, we are on fiber internet, if I didn't say so already last week. Last week would have been the first show on the fiber, and it seems to be working really well so far. I've uploaded a couple of videos. There's going to be another unboxing this week, which is going to be very special, so check that out. That will be out on Thursday at 10 a.m. as the usual stuff for the unboxings. And then, of course, I have also redone I have to do this about once a year. The Patreon card that shows at the end of the video. If you are a patron, please check that out and let me know if anything is messed up regarding your status. Because the interface for this on Patreon is hot garbage. So, generally speaking, Patrick, you might try Bruichladdich. Which, despite the extremely Scottish-sounding name, is one of the lesser peated Islay whiskies. So you might try that. You might try Bruichladdich or Bunnahabhain. Stay away from Laphroaig. That's a good bet. Stay away from Kalila and Lagavulin. And stay away from Ardbeg is on Islay too. Stay away from that. Those are all pretty heavily peated. I have not had this. It's not the real Port Charlotte. I think it's owned by Bunnahabhain now. I think, and it's just a brand name now. There used to be a Port Charlotte distillery that stuff was still trickling out from, and that might still be happening. We will need to, definitely, somebody mentioned this already. I am also surprised Pacific Chase literally never came up last night. And that's something that we will want to talk about with Jerry when the time comes. So, this is a hoot, isn't it? All right, so link to the Ardwulf's Lair Discord community is here. And then we will step into the news. I know somebody mentioned this before the show in the chat. I am, in fact, a huge fan of the film Major League, as you would expect, being from where I'm from. So join the Ardwulf's Lair Discord community. Cool stuff happening there. Speaking of cool stuff happening, cool stuff not happening, I should say, here's the cool stuff not happening news. Foxcon has been canceled. This is the Decision Games / Desert Fox Games official event in Dallas, I think. That was scheduled over Veterans Day weekend. So for anybody who had a conflict between this and Compass Expo, also that weekend, I guess you can go to Compass Expo. So Foxconn 2025 is canceled. The owner of the venue decided to exit the property lease and was unable to secure an alternative site in time for the event to occur as planned due to unforeseen delays. So I am prepared at this point to assume that the owner of the facility was a bum. All individuals who pre-registered are being refunded and receiving a voucher. In addition, we look forward to hosting Foxconn 2026 in a new location next year. That is from Decision. This was forwarded to me. Thank you, Aaron, for doing that. Otherwise, I probably would have missed this critical news. So, well, bear in mind, the publicity was weird, but they also capped attendance at 75 people or something like that. Last year was the first year. So it does... it's weird, but they're just getting it started, so they're going to learn things, right? So, yes, we have the worst internet in the world here, as far as I'm aware. So, I assume so, and they may have had to buy them out or something who knows? I don't know. The info was not forthcoming. But it won't be happening this year, so I don't really know. All right, so the other piece of news is a piece of news that some people have already heard about. If you are a patron, there was a public post on Patreon today, and there is, you're probably not the only person to know this. I'm pretty sure they're getting as much advertising out of me for free as they are in the magazines that they are actually advertising them in. So Foxconn, I believe Foxconn is spelled with two X's. I'm not sure. I might be thinking of Zaxxon, the 80s computer game. And the Fall Assembly down in Cary, North Carolina is happening this weekend. So check that out at armchairdragoons.com if you are in that general facility, or if you're not, but you feel like making a road trip this weekend. I will also point out that our good friends fits with news. Our good friends at Noble Knight Games will be having an in-store trade weekend, October 10th through the 12th. I will not be going up, unfortunately. I did make a couple of inquiries, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, and it would be a goddamn inconvenient time for me to go anyway. So I will not be going up there, but Noble Knight will be offering an in-store trade thing, and they have the clearance cave open, and there's if you trade in a certain amount of stuff, you get free goodies from the clearance cave, which does have cool stuff. Every time I have been there, which is twice, I have bought a decent amount of stuff from the clearance cave. It's just stuff that they have a lot of and they need to get rid of. So I bought a bunch of paperback fantasy novels from the clearance cave when we went up there almost a year ago now. So, and of course, the Wargaming events calendar is present at the Armchair Dragoons website as well. So stay tuned on that. Now, on to the actual Ardwulf's Lair stuff news. I will be running, after many, many delays and a great deal of time spent in negotiations with the boss, I will be running a Traveler campaign, a full campaign. We will be using the Mongoose Travelers, and I'll talk more about this if there's time at the end of the show, which, let's face it, there probably will be. They actually may have had some paperback romance novels up there. I didn't really look at those. This t-shirt, right now, you cannot buy this t-shirt, but thank you for mentioning it, Danny, because I really do have to get that sorted out. Spring decided they didn't actually want to fulfill orders anymore, at least not correctly, and I dumped them along with a couple other people. I and a couple other people dumped them for our merch store provider. So I need to find another one, and I have looked at the one Seth Skorkowski picked, and I don't like them, so we won't go with them. But we will, we'll have merch available, and it'll even, there'll even be new merch too. So this is the one of the first batch, and I've had it for 5 years now. So the Traveler thing, it is going to happen. It's not the best slot I could possibly have imagined. However, it is the slot that I have. Friday nights, every Friday night, from 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time to midnight. Now, midnight is hard stop time. I anticipate usually being done around 11 or 11:30. So, Doug, yes, I needed to reach out to you about this. If anybody is interested in playing, I am not capping player capacity at this time. I actually have a workaround to deal with more players than would normally fit at a standard table, which means 4 or 5 players to me. That's the number of players that I personally like. So if anybody is interested, email me a declaration of interest. If you don't have that slot free, I understand. A lot of people don't. But it's the one that's free for me. It's the one where my wife will be gaming and making videos about The Sims. So I will be running Traveler down here. So that is the plan. So if, Bill, send if it would work for you occasionally, just send me that. And here's what I need. I need an email, and the email is in the video description. My email is in the ticker, not in the video description. That's on purpose. If we end up having like 15 people or something like that, we'll do it West Marches style, where the players will collaborate to put the groups together to go on the individual missions. We can still make that work. So, but it depends what the response is, and we are going to have the RPG Digest Discord server. If you need an invitation for that, I am not putting that in the chat here, because it's not quite public yet. If you want an invitation to the RPG Digest Discord server, then mention that in your email and I'll send you one. That is where all of this is going to take place. The time slot is 8:30 p.m. to midnight. Again, midnight being hard stop. The target stop time will be 11 or 11:30. On Friday nights, that it is weekly. So, but again, if we do a West Marches thing, we'll see what happens. We might well be able to accommodate more people than that, even if we don't have everybody playing every single week. So the idea is to get this thing rolling. You know what? I had a statement prepared for this, and then I forgot to put it in all the notices. I will set it up such that you can spectate on the games without interfering with the actual gameplay. So yes, you can absolutely watch. I have no problem with that at all. So the start date is not set yet, but we have to bear in mind that we have upcoming holidays, and for me at least, that does include Halloween. So the earliest practical start date is going to be November 7th for a session 0, which is character creation, which in Traveler we tend to want to do that all together. I am on Eastern time. That is correct. So if you're in like Europe or something like that, this might not work out for you. I'm not sure. I'd have to do math to figure that out. And we will. John C. from the sunny Philippines. That reminds me, I didn't do the roll call, and now it's probably too late. Damn it. There will, however, on the RPG Digest Discord server, there will be a general roundtable event this Friday during that time slot, 8:30 to 11 or so, where we will talk about what we're going to do, iron out a bunch of details so that we can go into the character creation session, which could take longer than 2 or 3 hours. We can go into that with a plan and know how many people that we need to do, or if we have to break it up over 2 weeks or something like that. There is an extra flex week in the schedule before Halloween. So, all right. Nope, totally willing to take on newbies. We have at least one newbie committed already, actually. I will probably... Learning curve, well, you're not running it, so don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, really. I mean, fundamentally, the system is very simple. It's you roll the dice when I tell you to roll the dice, and you're going to roll 2d6, you're going to add something off your character sheet, and you're trying to get an 8 or better. That's the system in a nutshell right there. So if it's European Saturday morning, then that probably might work. There might be a crash course at some point, but that is a longer term project because that's actually a large project. Just ask Seth, who did his Traveler tutorial series over the course of about 10 months is how long it took. Now, admittedly, Seth's videos are far more elaborate than mine, right? But if you are looking for rules tutorial material, then I would recommend you go check out Seth Skorkowski's YouTube channel. He has a 10 or 11 episode, very detailed mechanical breakdown of the current edition of Traveler. It is based on the previous version of Mongoose 2nd Edition, but I am not positive that there are any differences that would be important. If you want to just watch one, then watch the character creation video. So we will be using the Foundry VTT as the virtual tabletop and character tracking and all that stuff. I, however, do play mostly Theater of the Mind, so don't worry too much about that. And it's not like Fantasy Grounds where like everybody's got to have a license, or somebody has to have like this master level license that's $200. It's not like that. I have already bought the software; it's covered. Don't worry about it. So, this is optional. Yeah, they absolutely are. They're hexagonal soundproofing tiles. Actually, I did that on purpose. Hexagons are kind of my thing, right? So, I mean, Traveler uses hexagons too, so it's awesome. So, all right, this is optional. If you're playing Brant, then you could peanut gallery this. If not, shut up. So, all right. So I have 3 slots filled, and like I said, I'm not necessarily limiting it to 4 or 5 players. We'll see what the response is. Very much depends on what the response is to the announcement on the show that people watch. Right. I got 4 people actually saying hell yes, just off the Patreon post. So we'll make it work. All right. So a lot of people, Prophetic Salbian says that he just found out that Kurt Russell's Soldier, that's a movie, was set in the Blade Runner universe. Makes sense. So there is this reference, and some fans, it's a kind of a fan theory, but it kind of holds together. So this sounds like an assignment for Origins to me, Mike Reed. So I don't think there is any. I don't have a holiday coming up Monday. I can tell you that. Lord knows I'm not off or anything. So, Columbus, yeah, that's not a real holiday. I don't get the day off. It's not a real holiday. If it's a bank holidays are not real holidays. That's just for people who work at the banks or for the government or something like that. So, anyway, very much so. Actually, this is actually how it kind of works in Traveler. Character creation is not really complicated, but it's involved. Let's put it that way. And that's why we kind of all want to do it together, so everybody knows who's playing what. And there's some interactive parts of the character creation in Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition, so we're going to do that too. So you're not the only one who can fit in the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man costume. So Canadian Thanksgiving. Okay, cool. I think I did know that, actually. I think Dan told me that. Otherwise, there would be no reason I can know. If anybody's going to ask about this, it is a compression sleeve for tendonitis, and it is super uncomfortable, so I'm going to take it off. And we'll see how my elbow does clip encounters here. Right now, it seems okay. That's mostly not hitting the tendon, as long as I don't move my arm around too much. So the topic tonight is Major League Wargaming topics. And I wanted to talk about what topics or ranges of topics we think of as the popular ones. And of course, we're going to start with World War II, because everybody agrees on that. Probably half the war games that come out in any given year are about something related to World War II of whatever. No, I got tendonitis from doing the yard work. Actually, that's I must have pulled something, because I don't normally. I've had it in my left elbow for 20 years, but I have not had it in my right elbow until like just now, and I'm probably not taking proper care of it. So it's the tendon is attached right about here. This is a weird position. It's attached right about here, and that spot is extremely painful. So So I think we will probably all also agree that Napoleonics and the Civil War are probably also major league topics and have been. And I do think this can change, right? So, for example, in the 70s and 80s, we saw a lot of Cold War goes hot type of games, and we don't see nearly as many of those. We didn't see nearly as many of those for a long time. And in recent years, we've had a bit of a resurgence in interest in that space. I still wouldn't consider a major topic at this point. But 2 years from now, it could be. Who knows? Who knows? All right, yard. No, it's actually yard work. We've been actually doing a lot of yard work. Our front yard is a mess, man, and it's a lot less messy now. So, Napoleonics is Drew. Thanks for stopping by. Is a big miniatures draw, and you can see why if you've seen Napoleonics getting played. There's a cat behind me. That is Zelda. She is one of our 2 gray cats. We have 2 gray cats, 2 orange cats, and a tortoiseshell. I've seen a fair amount of Civil War miniatures play as well, but I wouldn't presume to say that it's a big deal in miniatures play because I don't know. So Brian Lindsay finally got good quality plexi, works great. Glare is an issue. You can get the glare. They might call it glare resistant, and it is. I guess it's glare resistant. It's not glare proof. It's not perfect. I've got some of it, and the stuff I have is really thicker than I would like it to be honest. This is, the repetitive motion of this is completely believable, and that might have been what put me in a position of pulling something I didn't want to pull out in a yard. So I do think that is a factor, right? Perigi feels like Ancients ought to be on there too. How do we all feel about that? Because I thought about that, and there's certainly, again, there's certainly not a shortage of miniatures rule sets dealing with Ancients for miniatures. But I do feel like we see less of miniature stuff than we do World War II, Civil War, Napoleonics, possibly World War I, at least in board wargaming. So I would be open to the argument that Ancients is, and in my collection it absolutely is. This is true, but there's a number of examples that are completely new or good as new designs too. I'm thinking in particular of all of the stuff that Thin Red Line has done, for example, in that space. I can think of the 7 Days to the Rhine series that came out at the end of Modern War magazine. And there's a variety of other things. And, maybe magazine war games have less visibility than boxed war games do, because you tend to see them less in stores, unless you have a really good game store near you. And some of us do. I kind of don't, but, yeah, it's super impressive to see though, isn't it? It's cool. I don't have time to deal with that. So on the topic of Midway, right? If we're going to talk about individual battles, then I don't think Midway is. I don't think there's been that many games on Midway. There have certainly been some, but not that many. Not nearly as many as there have been on Market Garden or Gettysburg or Waterloo or the Battle of the Bulge. Stalingrad's a bit of a special case because a lot of games get branded as Stalingrad somewhere on the name, and it's not actually the Battle of Stalingrad. It's the operation around Stalingrad, and I think that's a little bit different. The Torty Cat is very vocal. Yes, she absolutely is. She is. We have three. I would say we have 3 vocal cats, and of the 3, the Torty Satine is the most vocal. I've got a tree to cut down. It's a little ornamental tree, but it's bullshit. It's not ornamental anymore. To cut down in the front yard. I got a bunch of lumber to chop up from when they took the trees out still, so. North Africa, yeah. I mean, I certainly feel like there's a lot of North Africa games dealing with various aspects of North Africa. A lot of that is Western Desert stuff, but we also see stuff around, in the Tunisia area with Operation Torch and that kind of stuff. Yeah, here's an interesting barometer, though. If there's a hit Hollywood movie about it, it's probably on the list of major wargame topics. But then we have to leave out Napoleonics, don't we? Because I don't know that there's been a hit Napoleonic movie. I wouldn't certainly characterize Ridley Scott's thing. But there's been like a crap ton of like sword and sandal movies, but, other than Gladiator, which is great, by the way. It's a great movie. I love that movie. You could get a lot of mileage on reducing glare by light positioning. I don't really have that option out here if I want to run the big lights, but it's a challenge that we're going to have to eventually deal with. Also, if your ceiling is white, it might help to get one of those, I forget what, Torchiere lamps or something like that, the kind that bounce their light. They don't like shine the light into the room, they bounce it off the ceiling. Get a couple of those. Those at least used to be fairly cheap. Well, yes. I mean, Danny says that the problem with Ancients is it's 10,000 BC to 500 AD, which is about right, actually. More about 800 AD, I would say. But we see relatively few games taking place, say, before the Peloponnesian War. I would say that's a fair statement. There is some GBOH stuff that does fit into that pre-Peloponnesian War. There's Chariots of Fire, obviously, and I'm pretty sure there's some Greek scenarios that are before that as well. A bunch of the battles in the Greek modules for GBOH are, in fact, set in the Peloponnesian War. I agree with this, too. I mean, sometimes you just want something that feels a little fresher than the usual stuff that you play. Well, let me get to that in a minute. And EFS is on this list for me, too. I have played it before a long time ago. Not really that long, but it was still a long time ago. Actually, it was still probably 10 or 12 years at this point. Brant says that 7 Days to the Rhine started as an attempt to reboot Fifth Corps and what's that series called? The Central Front series. And he's right. There was a near revolt over it. I'm not positive that that's why they changed it, because it is a completely new thing, right? It's topically aligned with the Fifth Corps games, but it's its own thing. And that is not a statement on whether it's good or bad or whatever it is. World at War 85. That's a good point too. And that was a massive production too. Recent Kai Sharp says that Cold War Goes Hot games seem to play into the recent rise of alternative history games. Has there been a recent rise in alternative history games? Maybe I'd have to think a little harder about that. But whenever like the topic of alternative history war games comes up, I think of whatever Ty Bomba is doing right now, and Ty is continuing to do that. But Ty has been doing that for decades, so I don't know if that is new or more than a statistical blip. Let me put it that way. We had another piece of news. So the official announcement has been made of On Hell's Highway, the new John Butterfield game. Let me restart that sentence. It is a reimagining by the original designer of the classic Victory Games title Hell's Highway. It is called On Hell's Highway, and it is going to come out, we think, sometime in 2026 from New England Simulations. I don't think you can pre-order it yet, but from the buzz, they are talking about taking pre-orders sometime before the end of the year with an eye on something like a mid-2026 release. And Marty, if I have misstated any of that, please say so in the chat. This information has come via Marty, who has also posted it on BGG. I am completely prepared to believe this. See, that's a problem. I can't pick this up with the right hand. So I guess we'll put it over here. I would love to have Yaquinto's CV. It is, as Perfidious Albion says here, it is basically midway using the flat top system, and I love the flat top system, so that is fantastic. Christophe de Klerk just ordered World at War 85. I think it could be, but it's not as though there's a shortage of West Front games either, right? Or North Africa games. I do think that of the three major pieces of World War II that we see in the hobby space, East Front, West Front. Okay, so if we're going to break it down like that, we should probably talk about East Front, West Front, Med Front / North Africa, and the Pacific. And of those, I feel like the least covered is the Pacific, but it's also that it's kind of hard to do, right? It is probably a factor there. World War I has been getting a lot more attention, frankly, for quite a while now. And I think that is Ted Racer's fault for designing such an excellent game with Paths of Glory and convincing a lot of people that World War I is, in fact, an interesting and engaging topic for a war game. This is an interesting observation that Frank is making. The Bulge, Waterloo, and Gettysburg, all games where the attacker lost big time. And certainly Waterloo is considered, and I think should be considered, a decisive loss by the French. I mean, it was over after that, pretty much, for Napoleon. The Bulge, maybe less so, because they're still fighting on the East Front for another 5 months or so. But the war is basically over before the Bulge started. It's just a matter of exactly when the ending is going to be. Mike Reed mentions Red Barricades. Yeah, so if we're talking about Stalingrad games, right, and games about Stalingrad, that's the fighting in Stalingrad, and not Operation Uranus and other things that went on in the environment of Stalingrad. The first thing that tends to come to mind for me, because I've played it, is in fact Red Barricades or Red October now, or whatever it's called. There's Red Barricades. I think the add-on was Red Factories that came out with Red October. No, the combination pack is Red Factories, which contains Red Barricades and Red October. And you can play Red Barricades and Red October together if you want, but frankly, either of them is a huge monster situation to play out. I didn't say so, and I'm not sure. Well, Mike Reed mentions that is an ASL historical module. And it is one of the ones that I did reacquire. I did not reacquire. The others that I had back in the day were the 2 Kampfgruppe Piper volumes, and I have not bothered to reacquire those. So there we go. There we go. Marty has the in on New England Simulations, which does really good stuff. So I don't want to spend the money on this right now, but at some point we might need to. I also don't have a way to get it to the house without renting a trailer and a vehicle to haul it. So if I had those things, that would be a little bit different. Master and Commander. Fabulous movie. And the books they're based on, I haven't read them all. These are the Aubrey Maturin books by Patrick O'Brien. These are nautical adventure novels set during mostly at least during the Napoleonic period, in the Age of Sail. If you have seen the movie Master and Commander, that's the movie that Perigi is talking about, and it's an awesome movie. And the books are good too. This sounds like a fabulous stunt to pull on Carl, and he'll be bald next time we have him on the show. So, because he'll pull all his hair out. I don't really mind that it is an unflattering portrait of Napoleon. I think that's a fair take. What I do have a problem with is Ridley Scott's take that Napoleon was a moron, which is obviously not the case. So whether you think he was a good moron or a well-intentioned moron or an evil moron is a different question. Waterloo's this is a good movie. It's a really good movie, and that battle scene is it's hard to top that battle scene. It's amazing. I need to see and or read this stuff, actually. Patrick Oles asks, I should say, would anyone agree that the two most, let me restate this, the two battles with the most games on them, is I think what we're trying to say here, is Gettysburg and Waterloo. And I think that's true, but I think you put the Bulge in there as well. There's a lot of Bulge games. I think there are, of the three, Bulge, Gettysburg, and Waterloo, I think the Waterloo probably has the least games on it. But there's no shortage of those. That's definitely true. For me, this was historically accurate. I would like to see the last duel that's supposed to be good. The Duelist was a great piece, though. I got opinions about this. I've talked about this enough. Oh, here's a good one. John C. mentions this. I am aware of this game. Let me put it that way. This is the Campaigns of King David from Clash of Arms, and it's like ancient Israelites versus whoever the ancient Israelites were fighting. And it's a kind of a cool topic. I think it is an area movement map, I think, or a point-to-point map, which is a little bit of a turn-off for me. But, I mean, I certainly have and play and enjoy many games with those maps. It's just that it's, I like hexes. Christopher Smith says GBOH ticks his few ancients boxes, prefer panzers in the games. I can understand that, right? The other angle here is, are each of us individually as wargamers, are we people that stick to the major league topics for the most part? Because a lot of wargamers I know are. They play World War II and maybe Civil War and maybe Napoleonics, and that's basically it. Yep, and you can get like things like white foam core board and stuff like that bounce the lights off of, which can clutter your room up, which maybe is a problem. But if you're gaming in the room with like a group, that can be awkward. If you're filming in the room with yourself and a camera, that might be something that you need to do. All right, War of the Five Armies. There we go, from Iron Crown Enterprises. I remember that. Or was it Battle of Five Armies? I forget. But there were a couple of games on... there's been at least 3 games on this particular fantasy battle, actually. Alt History. John C. has a copy of Sea Lion from Decision on the table. So that's actually a pretty sharp-looking game. So yes, they are all alternate history, Rob Johnson. This is obviously true, but it is, as we once would say in my discrete math class, it is vacuously true. It does not need to be challenged, but it is also something that is so obvious that we shouldn't need to say it. But sometimes you need to, right? Yeah. Apparently, the new copy of On Hell's Highway will not be demoed at Foxcon 2025. So John had the prototype of Hell's Highway, or the new Hell's Highway, on a table at WBC last year. I didn't go this year, so I can't tell you. Mike Reed says there was a TV version of the 70s Midway movie that added in scenes for Coral Sea. Oh, I don't know. I can pick up the Glencairn with my right arm. But not this heavy-ass water bottle. So this is actually 40 ounces and quite heavy. Martin7W asks, is someone developing a game for the current Ukraine conflict? Yes. There's a couple of different things in the pipeline that I'm aware of, but the big one is Defiance from Mark Herman and I think David Doctor. That's coming out from GMT, and I think that's pretty close. I'm not sure it's at the printer, but it's probably pretty close to going to the printer if it isn't. Perigi has seen the prototype for On Hell's Highway and watched a playtest. It's going to be fantastic. I would be shocked if this was not a dynamite game. I am 100% planning to... I am 100% planning to pick this up. And Carl, thanks, Mom. I'll put it back on. Fine. It's not super comfortable, but I should wear it. And it does help. It does help. So I'm not positive it's tight enough, to be honest, but it's what I got. So there we go. I measured my it said the sizing was based on your bicep measurement. I measured my bicep, and then I went a size down, and it's a little baggy. So okay. So there are new on the ad page on New England Simulations website. There are, up to date, maybe not final, but up to date graphics and stuff like that. So Frank says that World War II Russian front is the most important wargame theater by far. I do not have a quantitative number to put on this, but I would be very surprised if Frank's not right. But I am also leery of my own biases because I have played a shitload of Eastern Front games. So, all right. Molotov Cocktail says, it seems like wargamers in general are resistant to alt history games. Ty Bomba would disagree. He sees a lot of, haha, that's not how it would happen. Well, okay, it's not how it would happen. I mean, I am not disputing this point where I do think a lot of wargamers, including me, generally stay away from alt history games. But there's a line somewhere, and that line is not necessarily always easy to see, too. Because, as has been mentioned, all war games are alternate history as soon as you start playing. I think this is Denot that I'm clipping here, actually. So, Stacking Limit is trying to moderate on a dying cell phone. That's not cool. So, thank you. Your service is appreciated, Stacking Limit. All right. We have Against the Iron Ring looks really good. Compass Games has been a big contributor to World War I titles in the past, and I've even joked about this with Bill. But at the same time, they don't really have that much World War I stuff in the pipeline at this exact moment, and that's just a factor of who's submitting and, what they're submitting, so... Tom Borman says, it seems like Market Garden and D-Day occupy a big sector of the World War II popularity wall. It's certainly in terms of West Front, I think that I would agree, but I do think that both of them together have fewer games to represent them than the Bulge does. And honestly, they might have fewer to represent them than the Western Desert Campaign does, to be honest. Yeah, the problem is we got a local place. It's right around the corner. It's just not quite, right around the corner enough for me to walk this damn thing or drive this damn thing home. New England simulations games tend to be pricey, but I don't think they're crazy, and the quality is through the roof. So I don't have any complaints to make on their pricing. And they're also, like, say, Thin Red Line and stuff like that. They're printing in pretty small quantities, and their stuff tends to sell out pretty quickly and tends to go for very high prices on the secondary market once it has sold off. This is basically my opinion on Kampfgruppe Piper 2. I don't think ASL is a good system for big tank battles. So I think you should play it in something else, even if that something else is Panzerblitz. Drew says, interesting that the shift to much more operational games came in American Civil War, not the Napoleonic era. Given that Napoleon was more an operational genius than anything, there's some truth to that. It is in the operational level that I think Napoleon really shines most brightly. But it's interesting that Drew is perceiving a shift to more operational games, and that shift, I think there's two things going on here. That shift originated in the American Civil War, which historically, has not been particularly fertile ground for operational war games. There are certainly examples, not just GCACW, but there is a Civil War campaigns. I think that's what it's called. Civil War campaign series from Clash of Arms with Rick Barber maps. They're very nice. They are 2-player hidden movement type games. I had Mississippi Fortress at one point, which is the Vicksburg campaign game. And they're supposed to be very good. They're also probably not super easy to find, but they're also probably not super expensive. And Judd from Hamtag highly recommends those games. I didn't play it, and I didn't... I got rid of the one that I had, so... Jeff Beeler, this is a very interesting take, and I think there's something to this. He says that it's funny that Waterloo gets all the attention when it is Leipzig that's probably the most decisive defeat for Napoleon. Leipzig suffers from only having one British unit in it. I forget what the actual unit size was, but yeah, there was like a British Rocketeer unit at Leipzig. But I think you could make the case that Leipzig is a more decisive defeat than Waterloo was, except that Napoleon retreated from Leipzig, and his army was broken at Waterloo. So I agree with Not Enough Boom. I don't have a problem with the actress that they hired, Vanessa Kirby, that they hired to play Josephine. I thought she was the best thing in the movie. And I don't have a problem with Josephine being very prominent in the movie, actually. I just wish Napoleon hadn't been a moron. And Joaquin Phoenix hadn't played Napoleon exactly the same way he played the Joker. That's what I most disliked about the movie. All right. Sean Bean also does not die in that Wachowski's movie Jupiter Ascending, which is it's something else. Everybody should see that movie. I won't promise you'll like it or think it's good, but it is pretty and it has some interesting shots and some cool world building that I thought, and the overall effect of it was a little weird. So, Alan Salazar, welcome back to the show. Brian Lindsay, I don't remember what the flaw was, but I do remember that there is a problem in the opening title introduction in Master and Commander. It is okay. It is. You should hear my French. It is bad. Excellent. So I have played the first Brief Border Wars. I think I've played 2 of the 4 games in the quad from the first Brief Border Wars, and it's an interesting system. It's a Brian Train design, so, I expect a pretty high standard of design quality from Brian Train. And I liked what I saw from that. And it is area movements. I played plenty of area movement games. I'm an idiot for thinking, I don't know, it's an area map thing. It's like, it's only a problem in like this first glance response phase for me where I oh, that sounds cool. Ancient Israelites versus Canaanites. Cool. This sounds like something that would be, and I look at it, I'm like, on BGG, it's an area map. I don't know. It becomes less interesting. On the other hand, if I just play it, then I might have a very positive opinion of it. I don't actually have any kind of issue playing those games. All right, Carl mentions that there's a bunch of wiggle room within wars as Major League. Yeah, this is absolutely true. As we've already, I think, seen, of the 4 major theaters in World War II, the Pacific War gets a great deal less attention, and East Front gets the most. Kadesh, we do have the Battle of Kadesh. This is Egyptians versus Hittites, as I recall. And it's one of the oldest battles that we do have, if not the oldest battle that we do have some actual information on. And it has been handled in a couple of different war games. There is a version of it in Chariots of Fire for GBOH. There is a Kadesh game that Against the Odds put out, and I want to say that MMP did a Kadesh game in a magazine too, but I might be making that up. I don't know. Well, Mitch and Maine, welcome to the show. I would say buy another one or 2. I do feel like if I was doing that, and my ceiling in the game room is because I am in a basement, is a little bit low. I would feel like I would need probably 3 of those reflecting lights for that to actually work. Neil Badke has the TSR Battle of 5 Armies, which is pretty rare, as I recall. The Iron Crown one is probably these days also not necessarily less rare, but it was more visible to me because I was in the Iron Crown brand family at the time. Jason W. tends to avoid World War II modern and Napoleonics. American Civil War. There's plenty of people that just play Civil War, right? Just like there's plenty of people that just play World War II. I mean, there are plenty of people that just play this game, right? If this game happens to be ASL, then that's a statistically significant amount of people. But I can totally understand this. I have lost all interest in World War II tactical. To be honest, outside of ASL, it's pretty much the only thing I'll touch at this point. I do have 1 volume of Lock and Load Tactical, and that is a game system that I think is pretty good. But I should probably take some acetaminophen for this too, to be honest about it. Marty says Defiance by GMT is on the Ukraine it's by GMT. It's from Mark Herman and David Doctor. It does only cover the very early part of the war. I can vouch for that. And I believe it is based at least somewhat on the old Gulf Wars system. CS, I think this is one of the other ones that I talked about, and then I just didn't pay any attention to it after hearing what Ray was doing. I'm not sure Ray was the designer of this, but Ray Weiss is the fellow that runs Conflict Simulations Limited, and I think they're still doing print on demand as far as I know. All right. The Platoon game. Yeah. Was that Avalon Hill? That must have been Avalon Hill. I never had that, and I never really looked at that. I think Brant's right about this, but he's played probably rather few East Front World War II games. Lefroy, yes, I would be happy to have a Lefroy swag, actually. Yes, so this is one of those things that I think we don't really have as much verification of the legend as we would like to, but sometimes, as we discussed last night with Lieutenant Dixon and the gold coin in his pocket that got shot at Shiloh, sometimes these things do turn out to be true. And personally, I find this event to be in character for Napoleon. So, Carl says that the CSL Ukraine war game was not accurate at all. I, for one, am stunned at this revelation. Kaishar, as to alt history games, it is much more popular in Japanese wargaming circles than in North America. Like Red Sun and Black Cross, and there's been a number of other examples that I can think of. Red Sun Black Cross is part of like a 3-game series of alternate history World War II things from Ad Technos, as I recall. I always thought it was Hobby Japan, but it wasn't. It was Ad Technos. I think Return to Europe is another one. Drew says that East Front might have the most separation of knowledge of the subject to number of players. It's not taught in school in any detail. Unless you go to college and specialize in this, you are absolutely right about that. I did not take any college-level courses on this topic at all. In fact, I didn't take any college-level courses on World War II at all. But even in like a World War II class, I don't know, like a college-level World War II class, you might spend more time on the East Front. But like at the primary and secondary school level, yeah, you're probably going to know that there was an East Front, but that we won the war thanks to Eisenhower. So, Tomorrow the World, I have to give Ty big props. Tomorrow the World is a fantastic title. It really is. Christopher Smith is playing Front Toward Enemy. This is supposed to be a very good game. And it came out and there was buzz on it and people were saying, yeah, this is really good. It's Tactical Vietnam for anybody that doesn't know. And I'm pretty sure MMP still has it in stock, I think. And it usually goes on sale when they have a sale. And then talk about it just seems to have vanished. Is that because of the box that some people think is bland because it's just like a white box with a mine on the front? But I thought that was a super effective and very striking cover, to be honest about it. Oh, this is a fair point too. Craig Alexander points out quite rightly that Cold War Goes Hot is alt history. And there have been a shitload of games on that topic. However, when those games began to come out in the 70s, it wasn't alt history, it was near future, right? Which I would distinguish from alt history. Now, when those games come out, yes, they are alt history. And Objective Moscow. And I've got Objective Moscow. It's a pretty cool game. Turns out Kursk was not the biggest tank battle. According to David Glantz, I forget what the biggest one actually was, but it was some battle that nobody in the West had heard of unless you're a specialist on the subject. Although I think that is probably less true now than it used to be. The One True Phlegm warns me to stop clipping the French trucks before my tendinitis gets aggravated. All right, this sounds possibly fun. Japanese anime Zippang about JDS Mirai, Arleigh Burke destroyer of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, transplanted to World War II's Battle of Midway. I mean, this sounds an awful lot like the Final Countdown. To be fair, just with a smaller ship and less Kirk Douglas and Martin Sheen. This is true, actually, Jeff B. Well, so should we, when we talk about topics, should we consider like naval games to be their kind of their own thing, maybe associated with the period or not, or air games for that matter? I feel like there's not nearly as many naval games as there are land games, or as many air games. And Jutland in particular, I would. So in terms of the tactical situation at the end of the Battle of Jutland, it is not decisive. However, it did pretty much keep the German Navy bottled up for the rest of World War I. And I think that is a factor. So you can draw a distinction between this battle was a tactical success or whatever, but a strategic setback. This is my advice. Honestly, this is my advice for a lot of stuff that MMP does too. And you buy it when it's out and it's available, or you end up paying through the nose for it in the long run if you end up wanting it. So, but then, if you're decisive, you can just say, I don't need that. But I sometimes rethink those decisions. John MC, Avalon Hills, France, 1940, had a dozen alternative setup cards besides the historical setup. So here's my question on that. This is a Jim Dunnigan design that originally appeared in Strategy and Tactics. Was this true of, I've never owned either version of this game. Was this true of the original S&T version as well? Okay, James Whitmer says the greatest challenge in a market garden game is the space required to lay out the maps for a campaign game. So I would challenge this assertion, but I think often this is an issue, but there are plenty of examples of market garden games that fit on a reasonable table footprint. Holland 44 is the obvious one. There are two maps, but there's one full-size map and one half-size map, and there's about a whole map of overlay between the two. So it really only takes, if you have one of those 24 by 48 pieces of plexi, it will fit perfectly over that layout. Oh, very interesting. Christopher Smith points out that Chopper Pilot Vietnam, which is coming soon from Compass Games and designer Ray Fiore, and which is developed by our very own Wendy, has the same scale maps as Front Towards Enemy, so he'll be able to build extra scenarios using those when Chopper Pilot Vietnam comes out. That sounds awesome, actually. Yes, Mitch and Maine. So there have not been a ton of these. However, there have been some. So, for example, we have the two Great Battles of History volumes. I forget which order they came in. There's Samurai and there's Ran, both of which are Feudal Japan battles. There's also Sekigahara off the top of my head. There's Commands and Colors Samurai, which I think was originally released under a different name, but I might be wrong about that. Don't forget to thumbs up the video, folks. Alistair Logie is back from vacation, thank goodness. Welcome back, Alistair. Gregory Munn has 8 different games on the Kharkov battles. That's interesting, because I have like 2 or maybe 3. I might have 3. Vanessa Kirby is good in Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four was okay. It was okay. It was fine. I didn't hate it, but I certainly didn't go crazy about it either. He doesn't die in Ronin, but I didn't like Ronin. I should probably watch it again. This is also true. Oh, excellent. Brant has, so check out the Armchair Dragoons podcast if you're not listening to it already, folks. They got Brian Train this week talking about Brief Order Wars 2 plus China's War, which is an upcoming coin design from GMT on the second part of the second Sino-Japanese War. So, I believe, now, Jeff, I have only read the first 3 books in the series, so I might be wrong. But I believe that there are things taken from a couple other books as well. But I think the axis of the movie's story is based on whichever one of these 2 books it is. Frank says that D-Day attacker victory after long warm-up. Market Garden is still another huge attacker blunder. Yeah, I would say that's true. I mean, I know that they tried to say it. Well, it was mostly successful, but it was not successful. due to a number of reasons that I think we're not getting into here. There's some excellent documentaries on Market Garden on YouTube, so check those out. Sekigahara, I think, this is another one. I'm not the guy to talk to about this stuff, so I'm happy to be corrected. I'm pretty sure Sekigahara is the game Sekigahara is operational, as far as I could tell. I've never played it. But there are at least a couple of games about the Battle of Sekigahara, which is a pretty decisive battle, as I recall. And in GBOH, at least, it's a pretty big battle, too. The car chase scenes in Ronin are really good. I will agree with that. If I'm like at home and I have already bought the game, then no, I don't do this. But if I'm like just browsing BGG, looking at weird stuff that Clash of Arms released in the 90s, I'm like, I don't know. There was a Kadesh and Command magazine too. I think this is correct. You are right about this, Mike Reed. It was Raffia, not Kadesh. You are absolutely right about that. And good call. Kadesh is in SPS Chariot 2, which is part of Prestog's Master Pack. And Alan Salazar mentions that as well. Crecy and Agincourt get action because of the importance of English victories. Certainly Agincourt. I know a lot more about Crecy, which I am probably not pronouncing correctly. But Agincourt's definitely got at least a few games on it. There's a Men of Iron battle for Agincourt, and there's the old SPI Agincourt, and there's been at least a couple of other ones. That's just off the top of my head. Kevin Featherly has Combat Commander 20th Anniversary coming around on Thursday. Folks, I am about 5 minutes behind on the chat, so you know what that means. It is time to hear from our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping Show. So take it away, Noble Knight. We'll be right back. I'll get caught up as best I can in the meantime.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, big thanks to Noble Knight Games. I just had an order come in, and I picked up. I meant to put this in the news segment, and I always forget because it's never in the notes. I'll show you. This didn't come from Noble Knight. This came from Mongoose Publishing. I'll still show you. It's the Great Rift slipcase set. Comes now in a slipcase and 2 softbound books. If you've got the older boxed version, you do not need this. But I'm crazy, so that's why. What came in from Noble Knight? That is what came in from Noble Knight. This was the last of the Traveler Little Black books that I needed. I have all of them now. I'm not counting JTOS because those have art on the cover. And I still need JTOS 1 to 4, but I have all of these. Now, I've got the reprints, so, it wasn't really a problem, but this is a pretty cool adventure, too. It's been redone at least twice. So, and the current Mongoose version, which is called Secrets of the Ancients, plural secrets, is substantially expanded from the original GDW thing. All right, I didn't do tremendously well catching up on the chats. This is true, but man, it looks cool. Fortress America. Yeah, good call. Well, SWAT 2000 is an RPG, although, like a lot of the stuff that Game Designers Workshop did back in the day, and like, frankly, a lot of war games that were released through the 70s up into, say, 83, 84, it's kind of wargaming. I want to say Trial 2000 was 86, but I don't have the first edition. I have the second edition, so I can't check. All right. Brant, thanks for stopping by. We're trying to... So remind everybody, thank you, Danny, for reminding everybody to like the video. And also, check out, if you are going to buy stuff from Noble Knight anyway, use the affiliate link in the video description, and that gives me a little bit of store credit to play with so new things can come in. I'll probably do a video on the new Great Rift, which is a great set, by the way, but I don't like the older boxes that they were using because they I guess I gotta show you. So here's the thing. It's got this lid that doesn't go all the way to the bottom. And I mean, this is not a huge problem, right? It looks weird on the shelf. So I'm not crazy about this. But the whole thing comes with 4 huge sector maps. The set covers 5 whole sectors, which are admittedly rift sectors, so they're not full sectors. But I mean, they're full sectors, but there's not that much stuff in them. And there's some great material in this. So it's worth having, and I think you probably can't get the original box set anymore. I'll put this away when we're done. Maltov Cockatiel wishes there were more World War I air combat games. I agree with this. However, I think there are a lot. You've got Western Front Ace as a recent example from Greg Smith and Compass Games. That's a solitaire game, so if you want a competitive experience, it's a little bit different. You've got Wings of War, whatever the Wings of Glory, whatever the thing is with the pre-painted miniatures. You've got that, and that actually Sails of Glory looks pretty good too, to be completely honest, if you want a light naval combat game. And going back into the classic era, we've got games like Richthofen's War, Blue Max from Game Designers Workshop, Dawn Patrol, also known as Flight in the Skies for a while. So we have examples of World War I air combat games. It's not and these were popular games too. I have, how many Murky Garden games do I have? Quite a few. I've got both versions of Highway to the Reich, the Decision version and the SPI version. I've got Normandy, Holland 44. I've got Hell's Highway. I've got the two, I'll count them once, the Devil's Cauldron and Where Eagles Dare. I will buy the Goss one when it comes out. So I've got at least 5 games just off the top of my head on Market Garden. But I think Market Garden's a great wargaming experience. So, all right, Jeff Mueller says, the Battle of Dubno Brody in 1941 was bigger than Provkorovka at Kursk, but the tanks were not as cool, which is also true. Wings of War, yeah. Yes, well, ChatGPT has proven wrong again. I'll take David Glance's opinion on these topics more than ChatGPT's. Monty's Gamble is actually one that I don't have. I've heard it's pretty good. Wow, that's a good point, too. Wars of Japan. There's plenty of examples. Well, let me be a little clearer so I don't overstate this. There are a decent number of war games set on topics about feudal Japan. All right, I'm trying to catch up here. All right, John C. doesn't think GMT has shipped the international orders from China for China's war and hubris. I don't know. We'll find out when they give us another update. Jonathan Dyer mentions it's Serious Historical Games, who I have not really, I'm aware of them, but I haven't really checked them out. Has a couple of Feudal Japan games, including one on Sekigahara. Now, I don't know about multiple games from Hexasim, and I don't remember the name of their game about feudal Japan, but somebody did a video on it. I don't even remember who it was. It's been ages, and holy cow, is it gorgeous. It is gorgeous. Whatever game that is. China's War is out, says Joe Hammond. I had it on pre-order at one point, and I backed off. Even before I had to cull pre-orders. I've only got like 3 or 4 things on pre-order with GMT at this point. SPI's Operation Olympic, and I think Canadian Civil War, and Minuteman, I think are all alt history from SPI. Martin 7W has been playing Great War Commander. I have seen that played. I'll tell you what, I am interested in trying Combat Commander Vietnam. I think that could potentially be a very cool experience. I think that system potentially might work extremely well for tactical Vietnam. Alesia, so ancients, Julius Caesar, and the Gauls, and there have been at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 games on the Battle of Alesia. The classic one is the Avalon Hill Alesia. The GBOH one, which I have but haven't played, seems to be less liked. I probably should play it so I can have an opinion on that. All right, we're still catching up. Excellent. Holden Messerschmitt ordered starter kit number 4 from Multiman. So they found, I think these are all gone now, or I would have mentioned this like 2 weeks ago. They've out of spare components, they managed to assemble a limited number of Ziploc copies of ASL starter kit numbers 1 and I think 4. I have them all, so I'm good, but totally worth your time, in my opinion. Decision Games Coronet and Olympic. So I think this was half of a reimagining of the original Operation Olympic, along with Coronet, which is the invasion of Honshu, I think, which is, like the whole thing. And it did not get great reviews, I can tell you that. Tenkatoitsu is the game from Hexasim. Thank you, Pericalypsis. And apparently it has 3 battles, including Sekigahara. And like I said, it looks gorgeous. Really? Panzer Division Lair says that Avenge Pearl Harbor in Special Ops number 8 is a game on Operation Olympic using the Breakout Normandy system. I have this. I have never glanced at it. I bought it for the magazine content. Kai Sharp says that Twilight 2000 did have a connected war game that dealt with combat in that world on the tactical level. He thinks it was called Last Battle. This is very plausible. Oh, yeah, good call. Ace of Aces. Yeah, well, they did a Kickstarter. We had them on. We had Ed on from whatever the publisher is called now to talk about the new Ace of Aces. There was a Kickstarter, I think, last year. Something like that. I do have It Never Snows. That is true. Knights of the Air from Avalon Hill. That doesn't seem to be talked about much anymore. Whoa. Al Nofi passed? This is news to me. If that's the case, Mike Reed, I had not heard that. I don't think Al was the designer of this either, though. So I think that the thing that we're getting wrong might be the name. The individual's name, because I think the designer of Ace of Aces has passed. And as far as I'm aware, and I saw pictures of Al showed up at the SPI thing at Historicon. So let's not start any crazy rumors here. All right, Mo from Mo's Game Table is here. I think I would have heard if Al had passed. Okay. Al Leonardi was the designer of Ace of Aces. And to be honest, they both have pretty Italian sounding names. But yeah, Al, don't jinx Al like that. I would like Al to stick around for another 20 years or so, if that's okay. So, all right. So Carl can clarify that. All right. So I think we can put this away. Oh, this is a good question, actually. Frank Davis asks, here's a topic for another show. What would you like to see in a new Bulge game? Justify the need for a new Bulge title, okay? So I have a number of Bulge games that are comparable in number to my Market Garden game. So I've got somewhere between like 5 and 8 Bulge games, something like that. Thank God. We're all glad. Thank God Al is still alive. Yeah, you almost gave me a heart attack here. So what would we like to see? I mean, for any battle that's been covered a lot, like Gettysburg or Waterloo, right? What or Western Desert for that matter. What would we like to see that's new? What would make that feel fresh? So I can actually, I don't know if I can. Well, no, I think I can actually. What the game for me that felt really fresh when playing it, that was a Bulge game, was Last Blitzkrieg. That felt new. It felt, I mean, it's a core war game. There's no question. Nobody's arguing about whether it's a war game or some other useless nonsense. And yet it feels mechanically extremely innovative. So, and eventually we're going to get a BCS Market Garden game too, which, as Carl knows, I'm delighted about. But, you know, if it's not soon, that's fine. I've got plenty of Market Garden games in the meantime. So, and this is fair too, right? I mean, there have been enormous strides in research. Witness the compendium of Bulge lore that's present in The Last Gamble, for example. My Grail Gettysburg game, and this is going to sound stupid because I've never played it. My Grail Gettysburg game, and I knew it when I made the decision to buy it, when it was in print, thank goodness, was Last Chance for Victory, the line of battle game designed by Dean Essig, who also is the originator of the series. And I thought it was just amazing package. When you look at like the depth of historical commentary that's present in the game and the selection of scenarios and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really a masterclass in how to design a game about Gettysburg at that scale, right? Not every Gettysburg game has to be at the regimental scale and have 3,000 pieces on the map at any given time. This is cool too. So if we can get the BCS Market Garden game, say in 2027, Carl, I will be delighted by that news. I'm not generally in a hurry because I don't think I'm going to drop dead anytime soon. Hopefully not. You never know. But you know, I'm not planning on it. And I can completely respect this. First, I don't know what we mean by TSS second though, because second edition TSS is really 3 Days of Gettysburg first, right? So if that's what we mean, then cool. I can understand that. And Mark Herman prefers that first edition 3 Days of Gettysburg, as I recall. So wow, just thinking about this, holy cow. So Charles Latorra, I'm not sure what's going on with this. I have checked. And I have mid-roll ads turned off generally. I ran there was a couple of videos like 3 or 4 years ago where I had them on just to kind of see as an experiment. They are off now. I have verified that they're off. So whatever is happening, it is YouTube fuckery and not anything that I'm doing. You're clearly signed into YouTube though. Perry Spropoulos says TFT. So this is Time for Trumpets. This is Bruno Senegalio's game on the Bulge, and it, like Last Blitzkrieg, actually, is a battalion scale game. So it's a big game on the Bulge, and I had it for a while. The problem, I've talked about this before, and I ended up selling it, but I ended up selling it not because I didn't think it was good. The people I talked to said it was good. I mean, Bruno's one of those people, but I talked to other people who'd played it too. But it's like, if you didn't have the background in Bitter Woods, and I didn't, it's like, I have no idea what I'm even looking at here. That this presentation is completely impenetrable. YouTube has, somebody mentioned this on a show last night, YouTube has ramped up ads. There's more ads now. Sometimes I'll start watching a video and it'll be like a 30-minute video. Within the first 60 seconds, there will be an ad before the video, then the 55 seconds of the video, and then another ad. Super duper irritating. I find this believable. I'm not sure which game we're talking about on Little Bighorn. There might be more than one, but and I don't have any of them. But I do think that at least one of them does include this option. Yes, and the pop-ups to remind you to buy YouTube Premium are incessant as well, and insanely annoying. More annoying on mobile than they are on the computer. I probably watch more YouTube content on the computer than I do on the phone. I can get behind Alistair's position on this. I probably would consider it worthwhile, considering the amount of YouTube that I watch. My wife watches a lot of YouTube too, and you can get like a family plan. I would probably consider it worthwhile. It's just we're already paying for Apple TV and Amazon and maybe something else, and I'd rather not do any of that. So on the TV, YouTube ads are super annoying. I hardly ever watch YouTube videos on TV for this reason. It is bullshit. Roger Hempstead says, Last Blitzkrieg had a different take on some game mechanisms. Well, I think it's the game mechanisms that made it feel fresh for me. And the freshness of it was not limited necessarily to the choice of topic. So if you are someone who has played a lot of Bulge games, then I think this is probably a reasonable position to have. I really haven't played that many Bulge games. I've played Ardennes 44. I know I played something else. I've played, I can't remember what it's called. World War II Commander Battle of the Bulge, whatever it's called. John Butterfield's game. That's Butterfield, right? Yeah. I've played that, and that's good. It's light, very light, but it's not in the same class as Last Blitzkrieg. But and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm saying it's different enough in terms of its scale that it does not feel like the same kind of experience. You can get ad blockers, so a lot of games. There's I don't know about a lot, but there's at least some Bulge games that don't put Liège on the map. There's very few Bulge games that do put Antwerp on the map, which is the notional objective that they had, which was laughable. There are plugins you can get to block ads and stuff as well. Adblock for YouTube is the one that a lot of people use. This is not the one I was thinking of. I want to say that Legion Wargames maybe did one. I might be thinking of those Conflicts of the American West or whatever that series is called with Adobe Walls and a couple other games. Well, this is an interesting idea. Apparently the designer agrees with you because we are going to get a Battle for Sicily that will basically use this system. I do anticipate that some changes will need to be made due to the completely different nature of the air war over Sicily, where it was much more competitive than it was by July or June 1944. But because it's July of 1943 at that point. And that's another of my favorite topics too. So I've been watching that for a long time. It was like on P500, made its number, everything was going great. Dan Holt, the designer, was deployed. I don't know if he was active duty before that or not. And spent a bunch of time over in not Florida. And I suspect that had something to do with the delay. GMT pulled it off of P500. It was kind of still sitting there hidden on the back end. And then they brought it back to P500, and it seems at this point to be fairly close. And Dan Holt did come through on the Battle for Normandy Deluxe Edition, which I think, errata aside, once we get the replacement counters, I think that's going to be just as good a game as the original was. Could be Worthington that I'm thinking of. I'm definitely not thinking of a one from the Wargamer magazine. All right. I've played SCS Bastogne, but that's just Bastogne. That's not like the whole Bulge. I mean, I don't tend to count when we talk about Bulge games. Well, when we frame the conversation as the games on the Battle of the Bulge, I don't necessarily think of games that depict parts of that action. I kind of want to talk about games that depict the entire situation, right? Which is kind of the opposite position I take about Stalingrad, but it's just really a quibble over the terminology that they're using. Dark December was 3W? Did Dark December? Am I right about that? I do have The Last Gamble as well as another Bulge game. There's at least 2 or 3 that I'm forgetting. I probably got a similar number of somewhere between 5 and 10 Normandy games as well. I like Normandy as a topic. Ooh, yes, you are right, Vince Reed, OSG. Good call. And Neil Backey comes through with that as well. And Mo. Those are all OSG. It's easy to forget just how many non-Napoleonic games OSG did back in the day. I've never played that, nor really looked particularly closely at it. I've heard good things about it. I've heard good things about several of the Axis and Allies topical games. Bulge, I think I've heard good things about that. Like I said, I haven't played like the regular Axis and Allies since it came out in the 80s. So. And yeah, Dark December was from Danny, and Danny is, one of the foremost experts on this topic. And Panzer Commander. Panzer Krieg, I believe, is the title we're talking about. Panzer Command was Victory Games. That's an Eric Lee Smith game. I think we're thinking of Panzer Krieg. And Panzer Krieg was a John Prados design, as I recall. And there's supposed to be a new version of Panzer Krieg coming out from Compass, and they said that when John Prados passed, they said no, we're on track, we're still doing it, and I haven't seen anything about it since then. So, I've got Enemy Action Ardennes too. Yep, and that looks good. That's a Butterfield game. I expect great things from John Butterfield, really across the board. This has turned into a show about the Battle of the Bulge, I feel like. Panzers in the Mist. Panzers in the Mist was GMT, wasn't it? Or at least the cover of the box looked like a GMT box at the era. Yes, along with a number of other OSG titles from that period, including 20th Maine got re-released as Little Round Top, the Robin Hood little mini game. Little Round Top was a mini as well, I think. And Bonaparte in Italy was one of the smaller OSG Napoleonic games back at the time. One Page Bulge, yeah, we had Dana Lombardi on to talk about One Page Bulge for its Kickstarter not too long ago. Wave of Terror. I'm not sure I've heard of that. Rommel at Tunisia. So I can picture the cover of that in my... I've never played this. I can picture the cover of that in my head. Because it had as I recall, it had a Roger McGowan cover. Panzers make me pissed. Yeah, okay. Captain Nolan confirms that Little Round Top was a mini. The 2 minis that I have from Avalon Hill are, and do I have them in here still? Nope, I took them out to the other room. Are Bonaparte in Italy, which is what it sounds like. It's $17.99, $1,800, I believe. And it's just like a little tiny 8.5 by 11. It's pretty close to 8.5 by 11, or maybe 11 by 17, or maybe between the two sized map. And the other one, what is the other one? Hold on, I'll find out. I don't know where they are. Okay, they're not in the right place. But the other one, the other mini that I've got is 100 Days Battles, which is, I'm pretty sure, well, that's part of the Campaigns of Napoleon series. Devil's Den was originally an OSG game as well. Yeah, this is 100 Days Battles. If we're talking about the same one, I got it in the small Avalon Hill box. They did a bunch of games in that format, but those are the only two that I have. Several of which were like card games and stuff like that. And of course, OSG is working on Bonaparte in Italy 3, which is more of a reimagining of... I'm not sure if it was the first version or what, because these are kind of confusing, because there's 3 similarly named titles designed by Kevin Zucker on Bonaparte in Italy, and most of them are fairly limited in scope, but one of them is like this huge 3-map thing, and I've got that, and that's the one they're redoing, and I'm actually pretty excited about that. Iron Tide, yeah, Pacific Rim Publishing. I can't vouch for that either. Alan Salazar would like to see an alt-World War I game that is focused on an amphibious landing in Syria instead of Gallipoli. Interesting. You could also... I wonder if, say, Assault on Gallipoli, the recent re-release from Hexasim, has an option, and I've got it, I could check, for what if the Allied forces actually got the naval support that they were supposed to have gotten? Ugh. This is damn uncomfortable. Vicky, welcome back to the show. Glad you could make it. We did mention Chopper Pilot Vietnam, just so you know. Iron Tide. Is Iron Tide one of the things with the little plastic minis? Am I right about that? Or am I thinking of something else? I think I'm mixing that up with something else. I'm definitely mixing that up with something else. Thinking harder about it. Well, this isn't necessarily a bad choice of system for doing that, thinking about it. And I guess if you're playing the Grand Campaign, I guess it's kind of built in, so. Tide of Iron. Yeah, okay. Tide of Akron. Tide of Rubber would be Akron. Except they don't make the rubber here anymore. They make that offshore now. The headquarters is here. Some of the labs are still here. But the rubber's not. They don't make the tires here. And in fact, it's kind of a big deal when the Goodyear blimp comes back to town, considering entire neighborhoods are named after either Goodyear or Firestone. Neither of which have a manufacturing presence here anymore. Interesting. Neil Badkey mentions that Iron Tide used the variable combat system. So what was the MMP variable combat system game? Salerno, something like that. I think it was on Salerno at least. So Tide Pods, yum, yum, yum. Don't forget to eat your Tide Pods, kids. Salerno. Yeah, and that sat around for years. It was another one of those games that MMP kept putting in the sales, trying to get rid of it. And I think the system is interesting, right? I've got plenty of games using relatives of that system, and I think the turnoff for a lot of people was the disconnected map, because it like some other games. The map is kind of in discrete areas. The game I associate with this was the first game I saw with this mapping system, which was Great War in Europe, actually, from Command Magazine back in the day. Well, they're both versions. There is a more recent printing with a different box cover. I can tell you that. So Yeah, it just looked really, if you looked at the map, you're like, what am I even looking at here? I never looked at the map up close. I only saw like screenshots of it and stuff, like your photos of it and stuff like that. And I like didn't grok the map. And that might have been something that unsold a lot of people on it. That otherwise, I mean, it was, touted as the first game in a series that they never followed up on. I think they had a Kharkov game or something like that planned in that series, and that probably made its way somewhere else, hopefully. Might even have made its way to Compass, thinking about it. I'm not sure who the designer was of that. Was that Greg Blanchett by any chance? Because if so, the Kharkov games from Compass, Fall Blau and Kharkov Battles are Greg Blanchett designs, and those two use this same random unit strength. I mean, whether we call it VCS or not, it used that same mechanic, which is kind of a system defining mechanic, right? When we talk about a given game that has it, that's the first thing we mention. Just like if it's a card driven game, it's like, oh, that's a CDG, right? It's like the first most superficial thing you can say about it. So currently on sale. There we go. Okay, Vince Reese says Salerno was Nathan Kilgore. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering that, but I'm wondering if Greg Blanchett was the fellow who was working on the Kursk. Was it Kursk or Kharkov? I thought it was Kharkov. Maybe it was Kursk. I don't know. And this came back from Avalon Hill as well. The little Robin Hood mini. I've never had this, never played it. These days, if I was interested in a Robin Hood game, I'd probably buy Fred's Just of Robin Hood, but I'm really not. So, I don't feel like I have I'm not positive that bandwidth is the right word, but sort of the attention span to get into Robin Hood stuff at this point. I mean, I saw that Russell Crowe movie. That was bad. That was another Ridley Scott atrocity. Neil Badke mentions, I'm not positive that this is where the system originated. I think that actually happened in Invasion America. But a lot of people's first exposure to it was in Operation Typhoon. And I believe Objective Moscow uses something similar as well. So I'm strongly in the I don't care about Robin Hood camp personally. So I'm just being honest. That's why I didn't buy the thing. So Greg's done some interesting designs. I think Greg Blanchett is a designer that I would like to keep an eye on because he has, I think, let me say it this way. I think Greg's taste in the games he designs is in pretty good alignment with the games I like to play. So, oh, that's interesting. Stuka Joe says there's a free print and play version for the Robin Hood game with new graphics. Very nice. It's on BGG's page for the game. With the D-Day amphibious landing, Robin Hood, that one. Yeah, that was great. I was not a fan. And I like Russell Crowe a lot, and I like Cate Blanchett a lot. But it was bad. Dude, let's not get into this, please. Fred said an asshole thing at one point, and everybody objected, including me at the time, to what he said. Everybody has been an asshole from time to time. Including me. So, trying not to be, don't always succeed. You guys just don't see it. My wife does. So, well, I do think that this is you're right about this, as I recall. So there's kind of two different sort of iterations on this in the early days. There's the untried units, which is basically like a pool of units with like U's or something like that on the backs of the counters. And you distribute those randomly in whatever positions the setup tells you to at the beginning, and you don't know where the good stuff is and where the shitty stuff is. I think Invasion America did do this, and I think that Objective Moscow did too, where Operation Typhoon and the Victory in the West series games all had a variable strength chit, where you had units that were like rated A, B, or C, and then you drew from a chit cup to see what the actual combat strength was based on its rating of A, B, or C, with A being the best. So, but Invasion America, as I've learned, thanks to this show and the audience, Invasion America actually predates Panzer Group Guderian. But yes, that I think that is where people got introduced to that mechanic. And I'd have to look at the dates on what came out first. Patton's, what was the game called? Shit. Somebody mentioned it already, and I can't remember what it was. There's Patton's Third Army. That's the game I'm thinking of. I would agree with this. Sicily was the one I didn't forget. Because I know that not everybody likes it the most because it is the most complicated of that original Victory in the West series, which was Patton's Third Army, Operation Grenade, and Sicily Race to Messina was the full title. And I think that Sicily is the best of the three. But a part of that is because I'm super interested in that campaign. So the Errol Flynn Robin Hood is very good. I actually don't hate the Kevin Costner Robin Hood. I think it's okay. I think Kevin Costner's not all that great in it, but everybody else carries the movie. It's fine. King Arthur games. There have been a few. Somebody did one. I'm not sure I can name that. I was for a period of a couple of years, I would say this was probably in the mid 80s. I was very into Arthurian stuff. And even at the time, that did not extend to games. I am not sure I have ever played a King Arthur or Arthurian board game of any kind, but I have played Pendragon, the role-playing game, which is Arthurian. Morgan Freeman's good in it too. I think he's an interesting character that's a good addition to the cast, and I didn't have any problem with that at the time. October War might have. I've got that. I should check it out. This is true. This is in Great Medieval Battles. There are at least one and possibly as many as... No, I think this is the only one that's like strictly not historical, probably. So, I've never played Britannia. That is another, gap in my education. I have finished clipping the current sheet of French vehicles, so that's cool. And I store them in these little storage trays that I printed out. The 3D printing files for these are on Thingiverse for anybody that's curious. I did watch the History of the World series, and I felt like there was enough funny material in it to have made a movie, but not enough to make a 6 or whatever it was episode video. I do vaguely remember the Knights of Camelot game by TSR. I did not play it. I can believe that it is terrible, but This is the... So there is actually a campaign. We're segueing into the end of the show, so we're done with the wargaming topic here, folks. There is an actual Pendragon published campaign called the Great Pendragon Campaign, and I believe that Chaosium is going to redo it eventually. I would like them to. In the meantime, you can buy the old one from DriveThruRPG, and I kind of feel like it would be fine. You might have to make some adjustments. Robin and Marion is a pretty good game. Is a pretty good movie. Sean Connery and Audrey Hepburn, as I recall. Mike says that Britannia is his number one favorite game. That, given the number of games Mike has, that's actually a great deal. It's not down here now. This is out. Pendragon 6th edition is out. I have it. I have the Grey Knight campaign, which is a much shorter campaign, and the Game Master's Toolkit, which is also out. So it released, I want to say, in 2023. That sounds approximately correct. My favorite Arthurian movie is absolutely Excalibur. It is by far the best one. It is very fantastical, and you kind of got to be in the right frame of mind for that. You can actually get a print-on-demand version of it too, and I've seen the physical book. It's like this thick. It's a huge book, and there's an Uther expansion where you can start in the days when of King Uther as well, and that's pretty cool. I actually wouldn't mind trying this. Oh, this is actually awesome. Monty, well, you're really talking about a different category of movie here when you're talking about Monty Python and the Holy Grail, aren't you? Which is an all-time classic. I gotta say. Great Nicole Williamson, who him and Helen Mirren didn't get along at all, apparently. They hated each other. But just a fantastic movie. I'm pretty sure he's bald in this movie too, actually. And this would have been in 83 or 81. I think Excalibur was 81. No, Patrick Stewart went bald very early. You do see him with hair, and it's probably a wig, in I Claudius, however. So, I've heard good things about this, actually. This is a pretty good price, to be honest, for a book that size. I have also seen a BBC at some point when I was at Ohio State the first time. So this has been about 1991, something like that. Somebody had an assignment where they had to watch Hamlet. It was Hamlet. And they got up all the huge Ohio State library. So they, of course, have this. So they brought back to the dorm, they brought the BBC production of Hamlet. And that has Patrick Stewart in it as Claudius, actually, the uncle. And he's got hair in that too. So Ciarán Hinds was in Excalibur, as was Liam Neeson. So, well, some hair, yeah, but I mean, he was always bald on top, or at least very early. Let me put it that way. I think he, as I would do if I were. There's no shade on anybody who chooses to do something different. If I was bald on top and had hair on the side, I would just shave my head. It would just be easier to deal with. I Claudius is amazing. It's got a massive list of John Hurt's in it as Caligula. Brian Blessed is Augustus. Cyan Phillips, who is just bone chilling as Livia. Of course, Derek Jacobi as Claudius. It's a great presentation. It does cover the two books, though, I Claudius, and then the second one, Claudius the God by Robert Graves, which are also really good. This is true. I think when they did the costuming stuff, I think they made him try a wig. I think I've heard about this. I think they made him try a wig, and they ended up saying, no, this is asinine. We're not doing this. I'd say it's very different. I mean, I Claudius is very much a palace drama. It centers around the character of Claudius himself, where the HBO Rome series gives you like this kind of top to bottom picture of Roman society that I thought was pretty cool. And this is why the last season was felt rushed. Let me put it that way. This is the kind of stuff that the novel writers could get away with, but they wouldn't get away with on the television shows. I'd be curious to look at this. Too bad we only got 2 seasons of that. Gordon's alive! I didn't do that well. Sorry. That's just what we got to work with. But I'm pretty excited about the Traveler campaign. I had spent a bunch of time and effort and got people together to make characters, and then literally the next week the pandemic lockdown hit, and that was shot straight dead in the ass. So we never got to actually play. Hey, character generation in Traveler is kind of its own amazing experience, actually. And it's one of the things that people say about Traveler is it's got all these mini games in it, and it totally does. And character creation is one of those. I would be shocked if this was not the case. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I have you really have to have people to agree to this, right? To like be on live. I mean, it doesn't have to be live. You could record it. But no, I'm just not dealing with that at this time. That might be a thing that happens at some point with some different game. This will just not be broadcast. So, Brian Blessed was also in the Kenneth Branagh Henry V, and he was great in that. Brian Blessed loves his work too, to be fair. I could totally see this. Had it been made a decade or maybe two earlier, I think he would have been a great choice. Brian, he's probably too old for this now, but I always felt like the best casting that I could have envisioned for Tom Bombadil was Brian Blessed. That would totally have worked. Unfortunately, no production of Lord of the Rings is ever going to have Tom Bombadil in it, and I didn't finish watching the second season of the show on Amazon because it just like I feel like there's a couple cool things going on here, but I don't want to wade through the rest of this bullshit to see it. So I kind of lost steam on it entirely and just stopped. All right. We've got at least one other person for the Blackadder was brilliant. God, I think when I had seen Barbarella, and it's been a long time, I maybe didn't know who Brian Blessed was at the time. That's possible. I was distracted by other features of the film, if you know what I'm saying. It was about that age was about the age that I saw that. He could have. Too old at the time, but I am glad that there are some people who are enjoying it. Cool. I just couldn't. Even as I was, for the record, it departed pretty radically from the source material as well. But I was enjoying the Wheel of Time show. I thought it was, not exactly how I pictured it, but they have to adapt it. And man, there's a lot they have to change just to like make it work in that format. So, right. Just like we all did. Right. I mean, there are people that like it. It's pretty. They spend a lot of money on it. The cast is generally good. I don't like all of their casting decisions, even where they have chosen good actors. They have tended to not be the right actors. And I'm not actually talking about Galadriel. The only real issue I have with whatever her name is, Morfydd Clark plays Galadriel. The only real issue I have with her as an actress in that role is she's too short. That's just something that maybe you have to deal with. I mean, you can't necessarily find a 6'4" woman that looks like that. But we got a lot of mileage out of quoting Buckaroo Banzai back in the day too, in various RPG games. The writing is really the issue to me with Rings of Power. I really feel like it's just there's so much money involved that they are afraid to make not even brave creative decisions, but sensible creative decisions for fear of making somebody mad or of doing something that will somehow make the show unpopular. And by doing so, they have done things that have made the show not that as popular as it could be. Yes, actually, this is true. The name of the band Duran Duran did come from Barbarella, and I had heard of the band Duran Duran before I saw the movie. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with this in principle. I just feel like that the presentation of so we can, for example, make the comparisons. The obvious comparison is with Peter Jackson in the first trilogy, but we can also make the same comparison with Denis Villeneuve's Dune films, for example, which don't really stick super closely to the books, but they hit all the book's main beats, and they hit all the book's main themes. And I think that the Rings of Power isn't doing that. Now, the story beats, they're working in a compressed timeline so they can work with one cast over the course of this series of events that in the books takes place over like 2,000 years. I get why they made that decision. That's a sensible business decision for Amazon to make. There was, at one point, a Doc Savage movie project that I would assume is just completely dead now, starring The Rock, which I would have gone to see that in a heartbeat. Actually, I like was it a Roger Corman film? No, it wasn't. It was a George Powell movie, I think. Doc Savage, Man of Bronze, with Ron Ely. And if you watch that, you will see faces you recognize. I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, but the actor that played the principal in The Breakfast Club is in that movie as one of Doc's Fabulous Five. So, and I've got some of the actual paper, I forget who did the paperbacks, Bantam perhaps. I've got some of the paperback Doc Savage stuff to this day. It's a fun movie. I saw it first as a very young kid. I was probably not yet 10 would be my guess. And I thought it was a fabulous movie. I mean, I was 9 years old. What do you want? I had glowing green snakes and weird mystical venom and, Doc Savage superhero type guy with all these gadgets. I mean, I thought that was awesome. Wow. Captain Nolan has more than 100 Bantam paperback Doc Savage books. I don't. I was buying the omnibus versions when they came out. I don't have any of those anymore because for a while it seemed like it was very easy to get the older ones in paperback. And then later on, somebody was doing like a pulp magazine. I have some of those too, like a pulp magazine format Doc Savage stuff. I also got into the Shadow for a while too, and I actually liked the Shadow as a character better than Doc Savage. Doc Savage was, of course, one of the inspirations for Superman, as I recall. So, all right, it is 9:57, folks. So here's what's going on for the rest of the week. There is an unboxing video scheduled for Thursday. That video is the new edition of Under an Iron Sky from Thin Red Line Games. It looks very nice. So check that video out. Yeah, but Kenneth Robeson was a house name. Lester Dent didn't write them all. And I think Lester Dent did write some of the Avengers stuff too. I never read any of that. DC did Doc Savage for a while too. Or did DC do the Shadow? I think DC did the Shadow. I have. We could go down a whole rabbit hole on this thing. I've read the Philip Jose Farmer books that are kind of like supposed to be the real story behind Doc Savage and Tarzan. I just had it. A Feast Unknown, which was originally published by Playboy, because it's a bit on the smutty side, and there were two sequels. One sequel with the Doc Savage archetype, and one sequel with the Tarzan archetype, and I've read both of those as well. So, okay, we got a couple of inquiries on the Traveler game. I bought like one episode of DC's Shadow and it was immediately like, what the fuck even is this? I had no idea what I was even looking at. I don't remember who wrote that. I don't have any of those comics anymore. I have very few comics nowadays. But guess what I just picked up? Thanks to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the Traveler comic book. How awesome is this? I have not even opened this yet because engineering is going to be required to remove these from the packaging. But yes, there's a Traveler comic book and published by Marcosia. I don't know who that is, but there's apparently 4 issues. So thank you, Noble Knight. So, folks, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And Charles Zatora, thanks, and everybody else. Have a great rest of the night. We'll see you all again soon. And remember, if you are a Patreon patron, check out the title card in the outro, because I want to make sure it's right, and let me know if there are any problems with the way you are represented or not in that card.